Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all having an amazing day so far. So as regular viewers of my channel will know, I spent the last year studying at Yale University. This is my first year, so I was a freshman. So my whole college experience has been in a pandemic on Zoom University, which is a little bit sad, but that's okay. And if you're not a regular viewer, or if this is your first time watching my channel, then I would love it if you could consider subscribing. I've been sharing my entire college experience through many vlogs on my channel, and I've actually been filming YouTube videos for like 4 years. So there's lots of videos on my channel, so I would really appreciate it if you go and check some of them out after this video, and if you consider subscribing if you feel like you would enjoy my content. And also, if you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and comment down below, because those two things really help boost my engagement and they just really help support my channel. So if you feel like doing that, I'd really appreciate it, but if you don't, that's okay as well. So today's video, I'm going to be rating and reviewing the classes that I took in my freshman year at Yale University, and there were some really good classes and there were some really bad classes. And if you have been following my channel, I filmed a very similar video to this one at the end of last semester, where I kind of like rated and reviewed and gave my opinion and spilled some of the tea on all of the classes that I took in my first semester at Yale. So Yale has like a typical university, 2 semesters, the fall semester and the spring semester. So I have rated and reviewed my fall semester classes, and in this video I'm going to be rating and reviewing my spring semester classes, which on the whole were actually a lot better than the ones in the fall semester. And then at the end of this video I'm going to rank all of the classes I took in both semesters over my freshman year, so you can see like the whole ranking. Most freshmen at Yale take between 4 and 5 credits per semester in their first year, and I took 5 credits this semester, and I took 5 classes to make up those 5 credits. So I took Spanish, which was 1.5 credits. I took first year seminar, which was 1 credit. I took game theory, which was 1 credit. I took a film documentary making class, which was 1 credit, and then I took a class called the Context of College Education, which was half a credit, and I'll explain what each of these classes are as we go through the video and get into each one of them. Alrighty, so I'm going to do the same thing as I did in my fall semester video, and that is start from the worst class and go right up to the best class in order from like worst to best. And I have my laptop here, which just has like the pointers that I need to touch on for each class. So if I look down, that's what I'm looking at. But okay. Can you guys guess what my least favorite class this semester was? Comment down below. I'm gonna pause. Comment down below what you think my least favorite class was. If you typed Spanish, you would be correct. We did not see that one coming, did we? No, that's a joke. Of course we saw this one coming. Okay, so let's talk about Spanish. First of all, why did I take Spanish. Where do I start? So I took Spanish 110, which is level 1 Spanish. So at Yale there's like Spanish 110, Spanish 120, 130, 140, 150. So there's 5 levels of Spanish, and Spanish 110 is like the very beginner's level. Like it's meant for people to start from the very beginning. If you've never done the language before, this is where you start. And very annoyingly, lots of people who have done the language before and should probably be in a higher level choose to start here, and then it makes it harder for people like me who actually have never done Spanish before in my life. I was one of 2 people in my class who had never done Spanish before. Everyone else had done it before, which kind of, but whatever, it is what it is. So why did I take this class? Oh, believe me, I have asked myself this same question many times throughout this semester. But basically I took this class because I had to. So I've spoken about this in many videos, but Yale is a liberal arts model of education, which basically means that you need to take, there's certain like distributional requirements requiring you to take a certain number of credits in like humanities, in sciences, and in languages, and in all these different things, and I'm going to explain all of these in a separate video. But basically you have to take language credits, and if you're starting a language from the beginning, so you've never done it before, then you have to take 3 semesters of that language. So we're not done with Spanish, friends. 2 more semesters of me struggling through this class. So yeah, basically took it because I had to. And I think all languages at Yale are like 1.5 credits per semester, so it was 1.5 credits, and the workload was definitely worth at least that. Oh my goodness. So Spanish, normally, I think it is every single day, so you have a class every single day, but because we were on Zoom this year, what happened was we had classes 3 days a week, so we had classes Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then Tuesday, Thursday were asynchronous, so we still had to like do a class's worth of work on top of all of the other homework and stuff that I'll get into in a minute, but we didn't have to like log onto Zoom. Apart from some weeks we did have to log onto Zoom on Tuesday and Thursday because we had a test or a quiz or something, but yeah, the regular classes were Monday, Wednesday, Friday. These classes were all 50 minutes long, and there was about, I think there was like 10 or 11 people in my class, so it was a pretty small class size. My classes were from 9:25 until 10:15 a.m. And what I will say was good about Spanish, good and bad, but they were very interactive, the classes. Like, you had to participate. The teacher would call on you all the time, so it really helped my learning. Like, it was really good for my learning, but it was also a very stressful environment because you were constantly being called on, so you had to constantly be engaged and following absolutely everything that was happening. And this was very difficult because the whole class was conducted completely in Spanish. So the first 2 weeks, the teacher and we spoke some English, but after the end of the second week, the whole rest of the semester, it was completely in Spanish. We could not speak a word of English. The teacher did not speak a word of English, which, like, I had like 6 50-minute classes of Spanish, and then we went into like speaking completely in Spanish, and it was so difficult. Like, the teacher would just speak and I had no idea what she was saying. It was very difficult, it was very intense, and I felt very much on the spot all of the time because on Zoom, like, you're right there on everyone's screen and you're being like called on, and it was very stressful, but it was, I think that's the right way to learn a language. I think complete immersion in that way, like, that's the best way to learn a language. So it works, it was effective, but it was a very stressful 50 minutes. My professor was really nice. She is from, where is she from? I think from Venezuela. So she's from a Spanish speaking country, and throughout high school I think I learned Indonesian one year, Italian another year, French another year, Japanese another year. Like, I learned all these different languages and I can't recall anything from any of them now. But a lot of my teachers were not, like, didn't grow up speaking that language, and maybe this is a little bit biased of me, but I do think that it's beneficial when you're learning a language to have a teacher who has grown up speaking that language and who is completely 100% like fluent in that language, maybe even more fluent in that language than they are in English. And that's what my teacher was. She was, you know, grew up in a Spanish speaking country, so she's of course completely fluent in Spanish. And she was really good, she was really nice, and I think she liked me, which was good. Now, the content and the load of the class. So obviously the content was, we were just learning Spanish, and the load, oh my goodness, the workload was insane. It was so much. So every single day we had about an hour of homework on this site called Super Site, which basically is like linked to our textbook. You basically have to go through and do all these, you know, like activities and questions to learn Spanish. So we had an hour of Super Site due every single day. We were also expected to do like an hour of just like studying and revising at least every single day, and keep in mind we had like classes 3 days a week as well, and we would have homework due for all of those different classes every single week. So we might have had to like write a couple of paragraphs in Spanish about something, or read this book in Spanish, or prepare this or prepare that. And then we had multiple quizzes throughout the semester. We had so many quizzes. There was, I would say, at least a quiz every single week. So many quizzes all the time. And these quizzes would be like half an hour, or half an hour to 45 minutes. And then we had lots of exams as well. So I think we had like 4 or 5 like writing exams throughout the semester, and then like an oral exam, a reading exam, listening, like, oh my goodness, there was just constant, there was always things due. Like every single day of the semester I had something due for Spanish. Most days I had multiple things due for Spanish. They took a long time. It's in Spanish, which is like hard, and then so many exams, and it was just like constant, which again, like, is good when you're learning a language. You need to kind of be doing it every single day, but it was a lot. The workload was a lot, and it was intense, and it was difficult. Yeah. Did I enjoy the classes and did I like the content? Well, well, like I said, the classes were just very intense and very stressful. However, my teacher was nice, but she just kept calling. It was really stressful. I just felt so anxious every single class. And the content, I mean, there's not much to say about the content. You're just learning a language. In a way, it's like cool and fun to be learning a language. But if you want to if you're gonna learn a language properly, I think, like I said, I think immersion is the way to go, and immersion can be quite stressful, especially at the beginning. I'm also not naturally, I've never been good at language learning particularly. I'm academically inclined, but my strengths have never been in language learning, so yeah. So overall, it was kind of a little bit fun, but in a very intense and stressful way, and the workload was just insane. It was so much. So the reason why I'm ranking this class last, it wasn't actually bad. Like I said, it was kind of enjoyable in a stressful way. But all of my classes this semester I actually enjoyed, so hence this one is last. I would say purely because it was the most stressful, the most intense, and had by far and away the highest workload. So overall I would probably rank this class in terms of how much I enjoyed it and how much would I take it again if I didn't have to. No, I wouldn't. So I would probably say maybe a 6.5 out of 10. Yeah, 6.5 out of 10, that's solid. All right, moving on to the next class, which is my second least favorite this semester, or my fourth most favorite if we're thinking glass half full. It is Humanities 116. So if you were following my channel last semester, you'll know I did Humanities 115 last semester, and that was called The Purposes of College Education. And this semester I took the follow-up to that class, which is called The Contexts of College Education. And long story short, I basically took this class because as an international student I had to. Very long story behind that, not Yale's fault, but yeah, basically I had to take this class. And it was only half a credit, so not too much. The professor was really lovely. It was the same professor as last semester. He's really great, really interesting, and we had a lot of guest lecturers this semester as well. So we actually had the Dean of Yale College come in as one of our lectures. So yeah, basically the format of this class was, it was a lecture, a 1-hour lecture once a week on Wednesday evenings at 7 p.m. And then we also had a 50-minute discussion section, and mine was on Thursday mornings. So it wasn't too much in terms of the class time. That's a pretty light, but I guess it was half a credit, so it's meant to, take up not that much time. The content, I preferred this class to Humanities 115 last semester. I thought Humanities 116 was better. I enjoyed the content more. Basically we were looking at contexts of Yale college education and how it's changed over the years, and the liberal arts model and things like that. And it was interesting. I did find many aspects of it interesting, and the discussions we had in my discussion section were also really interesting. However, I'm ranking this class where I'm ranking it kind of towards the bottom, just because it's not a class I would personally choose to take. It's not the sort of content I'm personally really interested in and passionate about. So it was moderately interesting, and I'm glad I took it. I definitely learned some things about Yale, and it's interesting to learn about the whole model, the education model that you're kind of in, and how it's evolved over time and why it is what it is. And we were thinking kind of critically about it and what we would change, what we think is good, what we think is bad. So it's interesting, but I probably wouldn't have chosen to take this class. However, the good thing about this class was the workload was very, very, very low. So basically you never had any homework or anything. You just, oh no, you did. You had readings. So yeah, you did have readings. The readings were actually very, very long. There were very long readings, which we then discussed in our discussion section. But in terms of the actual, marked assignments, there were three. Well, there were 2 during the semester. So during the semester we had 2 papers between 3 and 5 paragraphs. So basically an A4 page. and it was basically you could respond to any number of prompts, and I'll put some examples of them on the screen. So they were pretty chill prompts. You could basically just write whatever you wanted for a page. So there were 2 of those throughout the semester. There was 4 opportunities to write a paper, and you only had to do 2 of them. And then our final paper at the end of the semester had to be between like 4 and 5 pages, double spaced, and it was again responding to a range of prompts. I actually talked about it a lot in my finals week vlog, so if you watch that you'll know what prompt I chose and kind of what my paper looked like. But again, it was very casual, very relaxed, and the reason for that was because this was a pass-fail course, so you don't get a letter grade, you just either pass or fail. And basically if you attend your discussion sections and if you hand in all your assignments, of which there were 3, so not really that much, you would pass. So yeah, it was pretty easy to pass. Overall, while this isn't really a class that I would choose to take, it was pretty interesting. It exceeded my expectations this semester. I really liked all of the guest lecturers as well. That was good. That was a good addition. And yeah, discussions were interesting, and the best thing was that the workload was really not very hard, and so for that reason I'd probably rate this class, personally for me, probably around a 6.5 out of 10 as well. Just thinking about like all the classes, so I don't want to rank it like too highly, but yeah, it was pretty good. And if this is something that, if the content in this course is something you're interested in, then I would say this would be a really good class to take. And it was like it's just a half credit, like it's such an easy like addition to add into your schedule. You're probably not gonna have another class at 7 p.m. on a Wednesday evening, so yeah, I'd say if you're maybe like moderately interested in this, then you could add it into your schedule. It was pretty good. The next ranking is really hard for me to do. Like 2nd and 3rd are so close, they are millimeters apart, but I'm gonna say, oh, this is a really hard call. This is a really hard call. Oh, can I put them as a tie? No. Okay, so in 3rd place, I'm going to put my first year seminar. So this was called Economic Ideas Worth a Nobel Prize, and its like thing was Econ 001. So this class was 1 credit, and most classes at Yale are 1 credit. The reason I took this class was because you can only take first year seminars in your first year, surprise, surprise. And so I kind of like wanted to take this one now if I wanted to take it. And I did want to take it because I am really interested in economic ideas, and this like class concept sound really interesting. Like I love economics, and I really thought it would be really interesting to learn about like a lot of different kind of economic ideas, and kind of there'll be like a really good kind of basis of knowledge to have, and kind of learn where all of them started. And I was correct. It was a really good class. So the classes were, it was a seminar, which is like a smallish kind of class that's more discussion based. So I think there were 13 students in my class. Obviously it was on Zoom. This class would have been so much better in person. Like everything would have been better in person, but this class especially, actually no, lots of classes especially, but it would have been better in person. Anyway, so this class was on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 1 until 2:15 p.m. so it was an hour and 15 minutes twice a week. The professor was really good. He was so lovely, and he encouraged participation, but he didn't force anyone to participate. So he never called anyone out. So if no one was answering a question, he would like say, come on, anyone, but he wouldn't single you out and be like, okay, Tia, answer this question. If no one answered the question, he would just like tell us the answer. So that was good because it made the class feel like a very safe environment, as opposed to Spanish, where I knew I was going to be like called on and singled out and forced to answer questions that I didn't know the answers to. In this class, if I was having like an off day or something, it was easy to just sit there and not talk at all. Like I didn't feel like I had to participate if I really wasn't feeling it. I did try to participate because I felt bad because the professor would like ask the question and no one would answer, and I would always feel really bad. So I did try to participate like a lot and have my camera on most of the time and stuff. But there were a couple of days where I was just not having a good day, and in that case, like, I would participate less, and it was nice to just have that kind of flexibility. Now, the concept of this class I think is really, really cool. Like, I loved the concept of this class and I thought it was executed really well as well. So basically, economic ideas worth a Nobel Prize. Each class we would focus on a different economist who had won a Nobel Prize, and it was, sorry, I'm just gonna have my phone, I'm just gonna turn this on Do Not Disturb because it stresses me out. Each class we would focus on an economist who had won a Nobel Prize and the idea that they had come up with to win that Nobel Prize. So each class was just focused on one of them, and we would go through like who the economist is and then talk about like their life and how they came up with the idea and then what the idea is. And my professor was really good at like putting the idea into really simple terms that was super easy to understand, and he would like make up cool scenarios and like games that we could interact with in order to understand the idea better. But then once we finished that class, then that was the end of that professor. That was the end of that economist, and not the end of the professor. No, he stayed around the whole semester, but that was the end of that economist. And then the next lecture the next seminar, we moved on to a completely new one and a completely new idea. And so we did that every single seminar. And so by the end of the semester, I knew, like, you know, 25 or something different economists and 25 different economic ideas, and I knew we managed to go into them in quite a lot of like depth and detail in just one seminar. But my professor was really good at making it in a way so that we could like understand, because some of these ideas are quite complex, but he would kind of like make it in a way so that we could understand, and I thought it was really, really interesting. And I felt like by the end of the class I have now such like a wide like knowledge of all of these different like areas of economics and like kind of how they all fit together, and where all of these different like concepts that all of the economics I'm now learning in my like normal economics classes, where all of those things came from. And like, it was interesting how recently some of these ideas have like come up, and it was so good also to take this class in at the same time as game theory, which I'll speak about in a minute, because a lot of the economists and the ideas we talked about were to do with game theory and formed the basis of game theory. Like Nash, for example, John Nash basically came up with game theory, or like came up with a lot of what is today game theory. And it was just really interesting to see there was so many like overlap of ideas between this class and game theory, and I found that so interesting. I loved it. It was so interesting. And yeah, so I really liked this class. So the workload for this class was also pretty low. It was pretty nice. So each week we just had a quiz. Oh, so no, there were readings to do on each economist before the seminar. They were sometimes a little bit long, but in terms of like college level readings, they weren't too long, they weren't too bad, they didn't take too much time. And then at the end of each week, due on Friday at midnight, we had a quiz, and the quiz covered like the two economists and ideas that we had covered in seminar that week. And they were basically, each quiz had 5 questions, and it would be a question, and then you would type like a sentence or a couple of sentences or a paragraph in response to the question. So it wasn't a right or wrong question, it was a kind of more open-ended question asking you to kind of like, basically, if you had been paying attention in class, you'd probably know how to answer the questions. It wasn't too difficult, and also the professor graded the quizzes so easily. Like, he gave me 100 on every single quiz, and I'm pretty sure he gave most people 100 on every single quiz. So yeah, basically if you've been paying attention in class, you'll probably get like 100 on the quiz. So that was every single week, as well as the readings every single week. And then in terms of like our final paper or final exam, we had a final paper, not a final exam, at the end of the semester. So we had to pick an economist who we hadn't covered in class. So probably an economist who hadn't won a Nobel Prize, but who had an idea that was worth a Nobel Prize, or that we thought was worth a Nobel Prize. or an economist that had won a Nobel Prize but that we hadn't covered in class. And we had to write like a 10 to 12 page paper on this economist, and we had to basically explain who the economist was and explain what their idea was. And I think just after halfway through the semester we had the draft, like a first draft of our paper due, and it had to be like at least somewhere between 5 and 8 pages of like writing or dot points. We had to submit that to the professor, and he basically, if we'd submitted it, if we gave him something, then that's good, and if we didn't give him something, then he would like mark us down or something, I don't know. And then the full paper was due at the end of the semester, and also in the last week of classes we had to give a 5-minute like PowerPoint presentation and speech on like summarizing what our paper was about. So our economist and our economic idea, we gave a little presentation on that in the last week of class. Then the next week we submitted our final paper, and that was that. Overall, I loved the class, and I would definitely recommend it, especially to anyone who's interested in economics, but also to anyone. Like, you didn't have to have a base knowledge of economics at all. Like, it was assumed you had zero knowledge of economics. So anyone could take this class, and I think lots of people, like, I think anyone, even if you're not super interested in economics, I think it's a really interesting. I think you might be surprised how interested you would be in some of the things we talked about. I think it was such an interesting class, really enjoyed it, really, and it was like, it would be so much better in person because we could have such better discussions, and I think there would be more class participation just naturally from us all being in person. But yeah, loved the class. So I would rank it probably, sorry, I'd rate it like, oh, this is hard, maybe like an 8 out of 10. That's pretty high, that's pretty high. Maybe an 8 out of 10. Yeah. Alright, next at number 2 on the list we have game theory, or Econ 159. So this was also 1 credit, and the reason I took this class was because it sounded so interesting. I'm possibly going to major in economics or double major in economics and film, so this class would like count towards, you know, the classes that you need to take to be able to major in economics. So that's one reason I took it, but the main reason was just because it looked so interesting, and I was like, oh, and I had, oh yeah, so it was taken, the professor was one of the professors who took my economics, like my intro to microeconomics class last semester, and he was really good. I really liked him last semester. He's actually British, so I don't know why I said that, but yeah, anyway, so I liked his teaching style. I thought it was really good, and he wasn't the main professor in my economics class last semester, but he was the professor for this class, so I was interested to like have a class where he actually did all of the teaching. So that's why I took this class, and oh my gosh, it was so good. So the classes, there were 2 lectures every single week. So on Tuesday and Thursday, for an hour and 15 minutes, there was a lecture, and the lectures were pretty big. There was, I think, like 180 students, obviously on Zoom, and oh my goodness, actually, if there was one class I could have had in person, it would have been this class, because it's called game theory, and I'll get into a little bit more what it was about in a second. But basically you get to play a lot of games, and some of the games we could play on Zoom, but some of the games we couldn't play on Zoom. So a couple of times my professor would, like, through Zoom share his screen and show us a video of like him when he took the class back in like 2008, and he would show a video of his 2008 game theory class playing the game that we were learning about. And so it was such like a slap in the face of like, this is what you're missing out on. If we could be in person, this is what you'd be doing. And it was like a game where you threw sponges at each other. Like, how fun is that? I am quite devastated that I didn't get to experience that, but anyway, so yes, 2 lectures each week, an hour and 15 minutes, and then we also had a discussion section which was 50 minutes, and the discussion sections were optional, but I went to all of mine because my discussion section teaching assistant was Australian, and I'm all about that Australian accent. So yeah, the 2 lectures per week were lectures, which means students don't talk, lecturer talks the whole entire time and covers so much content, and it's very overwhelming. And so like there were, like when we played games, we would play games so the lecturer would get us involved and get us to speak during the games, and we could ask a question, but predominantly it was just like the professor speaking the whole time. In terms of the load for this class, I would say it was probably like moderate for a Yale class. Basically we just had to attend the lectures, keep up with the lectures, and I would like write notes after each lecture. And then in terms of what was due, we just had a problem set due every single week. The problem sets were quite difficult. They took me a very long time. If you've been watching my vlogs throughout this semester, you'll have seen me struggle through these problem sets. But the good thing was that they had a lot of help sessions, so the teaching assistants and the peer tutors would run like help sessions or office hours on Zoom, and you could join them and ask questions, and I would join them every single week the day before the problem set was due and go basically ask about every single question, and they wouldn't tell you the answers. They were very good about like not telling you any of the answers, but they would like help you put some ideas in your mind and help you kind of like work your way through the problem. So the problem sets were quite long and difficult, but they were like manageable. So we just had one of those due every single week on Thursday, and then we had one midterm exam the day after my birthday, which was kind of sad. So March 18th in the middle of the semester. And it's unusual to have just one midterm exam. Most classes would have 2 or 3. My chemistry class last semester had 4, which I was very annoyed about. But yeah, we just had one midterm, and then we had a final exam. The professor was really great. I liked his teaching style. He made things make sense. Sometimes he would make things make too much sense, and then when I tried to go through the games or the problems by myself, I'd be like, I don't understand this, and then I would go and like watch the lecture again, and he would make it make sense, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, yes, I understand this. Then I'd go away and I wouldn't understand it, and I'm like, how do you make it make so much sense, but I can't make it make sense in my head? I don't know. But he was really good. He's been teaching for a long time. He's been at Yale for a very long time. He's quite a like high up member in the Yale community. He was like the, what do you call it, this person of Yale for like 8 years. He only recently stopped being that in like 2019 or 2020, I think. So yeah. And also, speaking, you know how I spoke about John Nash in my first year seminar? So John Nash is basically, oh, my camera's dying. John Nash and the Nash equilibrium that he came up with are like probably the biggest part of game theory, and my professor knew John Nash when he was alive. Like, he knew him, and I just thought that was very cool. So I was like kind of, I don't know, fangirling is the right word, but I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. So basically, in terms of the content, if you don't know what game theory is, maybe a quick Google search would be good, or I'll put it on the screen here and you can pause to read. But yeah, that's basically what game theory is, and the class was called game theory, and so we studied game theory. It's like we started the class assuming no knowledge of game theory. There was you had to have done Econ 115, so Introductory Microeconomics, to be able to do this course. So that was the only prerequisite for this course, and I took that class last semester. So I was able to do the course, and so you had to have a little bit of knowledge of microeconomics basically, but you didn't have to have any knowledge of game theory. We kind of started from the beginning, and yeah, we just learned about game theory, and we learnt a lot of game theory is, you know, learning about games and the players and the strategies and the little game matrices and drawing tree diagrams and like looking at just like incentives and all of these different things, which I found really interesting. And by the end of the semester, we had, if you watch my finals vlog, you'll know I said we had learnt over like 60 games. I'll put them all on the screen now. It's like, we learnt so many, and they're all so much fun. And we got to, whenever we learnt a game, we got to play it in class, or play like a version of the game that you could play in class. The Prisoner's Dilemma, for example, is probably the most famous game in game theory, and it's a very simple game compared to most of the other games we did, but we did it in our first class. So we got to like play that game, and there's this like poll site. If you go to college, your lecturers might have used it. It's called Poll Everywhere. The whole class can basically vote in like a live poll, and so we played some of our games that way, and we played some of them just like volunteers, or the professor would pick a couple of people to play. And yeah, so we'd play the game and then we'd kind of dissect it, analyze it, learn about it, apply it to the real world. And we did that for lots of different games, and it was just really interesting. I loved it. I loved it. It's kind of like the intersection of like, it's the area of economics I think that I'm most interested in, is like kind of game theory. It's just really interests me. I just love like kind of, I guess, thinking about, it's almost like a little bit of psychology, and like, because we would look at games and analyze matrices and see in a game or in a certain scenario that would happen in real life what the optimal outcome and scenario is, and what people should like pick and which path people should go down because of their payoffs. But then in real life people actually don't do that. Like in the sponge throwing game, basically, okay, let me explain the sponge throwing game because it's really interesting. So basically there's these two people who are standing like really far apart, and they both have a sponge, and each like day or each turn, one person moves one step forward, and then they can choose to either throw the sponge or to not throw the sponge, and then the next day the next person steps forward and they have the same choice. And basically what happens in the game is, if you throw the sponge and you hit the other person, you win the game. If you throw the sponge and you miss the other person, you lose the game and the other person wins. So obviously at some stage you want to throw the sponge, but like you don't want to wait until you're super close, because you want to hit the other person and you want to win, but you don't want to throw the sponge too early because you don't want to miss the other person and lose. So it's like, when do you throw the sponge? Because like in deciding whether to throw the sponge, if you decide not to throw the sponge, then know that on the next turn the other person's going to take a step forward and they could decide to throw the sponge, but they could also not decide to throw the sponge. But if they do decide to throw the sponge, then they could hit or miss. So like, what's the probability of them deciding to throw the sponge, and are they likely to hit or are they likely to miss? And what's the probability of them hitting and missing? How good of a throw are they? And who should, in this game, who's going to end up like throwing the sponge first? Who should throw the sponge first? And basically there's this whole like graph, and it's really hard to explain without the graph, but basically you throw, it doesn't matter who is a better shot, whoever takes the step forward on the turn where something and something adds up anyway to one, basically that person should throw the sponge. So you like play that game in class and then you analyze it, but then we look at the real world and what happens in the real world. And because my professor has played this game in class many times over many years with his students, what happens an overwhelming like percentage of the time is that someone throws the sponge and misses, and then that person loses and the other person wins. And we were looking at the reasons why that is. Perhaps it's like overconfidence, people think they're a better shot than they actually are, and also perhaps my professor says people, or he said especially Americans, have like a proactive bias, so they're like more likely to like take action and throw the sponge rather than not take action and not throw the sponge, if that makes sense. Even if that's not what they should actually do, considering the graph, the matrices, their payoffs, etc. So I just find that fascinating. I find that so interesting, and I loved looking at all the different games. So got off on a bit of a tangent there, but yeah, this class, so good. I just really wish I could have taken this one in person, because then it would have been so much more fun to play all the games, because some of them you couldn't play in person, and the ones that you could, sorry, some of them you could only play in person and you couldn't play on Zoom, and the ones that you could play on Zoom still would have been a lot better in person. But either way, I'm really glad I took this class this semester, and I'd probably, if I gave it like a ranking, why do I keep saying that? A rating, I think I'm going to rate it 8.5 out of 10, which is very high, like that's really good. So yeah. And finally, at the top of my ranking list, the very best class I took this semester, in my opinion, it is Film 162, Introductory, Documentary, Filmmaking. Oh my goodness. Oh, yes. This was like such a good class. Oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. So this class was worth 1 credit, and the reason I took this class was because I have a YouTube channel, and I've had it for many years, and I really love filming and editing videos. So I thought maybe I should take a class where I can do that. And I also was like, at the start of this semester, I was like, maybe I will like major or double major in film and media studies. I should probably take a film class to see if that's something I would like to do. And basically in the film and media major at Yale, there are three paths you can take. You can either take the documentary path, you can take the film path, which is like films, movies, you know, like Harry Potter, that sort of thing. Or you can take, I think, like this screenwriting class and directing or like producing, kind of the one where you don't like film and edit, the one where you like write and direct. I don't know. I don't really know. I'm not going to do that one. I definitely thought the one that I was most interested in was documentary making, because that's kind of like the style of stuff that I like to do on YouTube, is more that than any of the other ones. So I took Introductory Documentary Filmmaking, which is like a prerequisite for the major if you're going to major in documentary filmmaking. And I basically took it to see if I liked it. And I thought at the start of the semester, I'm either gonna love it or I'm gonna hate it. And I loved it. It was so good. So for this class, there was just one class a week, and it was on Monday afternoons, and it went for 4 hours. Oh goodness, that was a long time. By the end, my eyes were so sore from like staring at Zoom for so long. We would have like a 15-minute break halfway through class, but my professor always like gave us a film or something to watch or something to read during the break that would take like 10 minutes. So we had to like still be watching a screen for 10 minutes, and we only had like a 5-minute break or like off the screen in most classes. So yeah, 4 hours on a Monday afternoon was a little bit tough, but it was such a good class that I enjoyed it. So there were only like, I think was there 6 or 7 students in the class. It was a really small class, which was really great. And that was a really good size, and I really wish I could have met everyone in person. I'm kind of sad. I met 2 people in person, just like by virtue of one of them was in my documentary, and the other one I bumped into on campus. But yeah, would have been great to meet all of them, but they were all just such amazing people. My professor was really nice. It was very discussion based. The professor spoke probably as much as we all did. Like we all kind of spoke an equal amount of time, so that was really good. We were all really like involved in the class, talking, and yeah, professor was good. And the content, okay, so before class each week we would have some readings that we had to do, and we'd also normally have a film or two that we would have to watch, like a documentary style film that we had to watch. And then each week we had to write a QCQ, which is like quote, comment, question on one of the readings or the documentaries, and then we had to upload that and submit it each week. And we would discuss the readings and the film that we watched in class. And then also each week we would have due like our own little project that our professor would give us to do each week. And I am going to upload all of mine in a YouTube video, and I'll explain like the prompt for the project, and then I will like show you the piece that I made. So I'm gonna put that on my YouTube channel. The first week, for example, the prompt was a maximum 3-minute film exploring color. And then the next week it was exploring sound. And then one week we had to like do a 5-minute interview with someone or ask them 5 questions, I think it was. Anyway, so little things like that we would have to do every single week as well. And then in class, we would go through the readings and the film. Then sometimes we'd have like a guest filmmaker come in some weeks. And if that was the case, we would watch one of their films the week before, so we could discuss it with them, which was really good. And then we would watch everyone's like little 3-minute assignment piece that they had made that week with the prompt. So we would watch everyone's, and then we would like spend 10 minutes discussing everyone's, giving them like constructive feedback, saying what we liked, what we didn't like, and just like discussing everyone's pieces, which was really good. Yeah, that was like my favorite part of class. I loved watching what everyone had made, and it's really cool because you get to know people, you get to know your classmates a lot more through the work that they were making a lot more than you would in any other class, so I really appreciated that aspect of the class. In terms of like the course load, that's what we had to do every single week, and then our final project was making a documentary. So it was a 12 to 15 minute documentary. Again, I'm gonna upload that on my YouTube channel soon. I'm excited for you all to see it. So yeah, we had to make a documentary, and in the last week of class we had to submit like a 8 to 10 minute, or no, like half the final film's length. We had to submit a draft of our documentary, and then my final documentary film was due the week after, in finals week, when we had like a screening. So we had a afternoon of screenings of all of our documentaries, and we could invite families and friends, and yeah, so then we watched everyone's documentaries, which was a lot of fun, and we got to speak a little bit after our documentary had been screened. We got to speak a little bit about the process behind it, and then we like got all of the guests who had come off the screening, and then we had just our final like class discussion about all of the works, the pieces that we had made, and then we said goodbye. And yeah, you will have seen that in my finals week vlog if you've watched it. So that was like the end of semester assignment. So I would say overall the workload, it was quite a lot, but probably I'd say about the same as game theory, probably average for like a Yale class. I was actually the only freshman in this class, which was kind of cool, but yeah, I'd say probably average. And overall I absolutely loved this class, if you couldn't already tell, but I think a large part of that was because I absolutely love and I'm so passionate about documentary filmmaking and filming and editing. So if you don't like filming and editing videos, you could take this class and find out that you actually do like that. But if it turns out you actually don't like that, then you're probably not going to like this class, because that's what this class is about. I mean, the title of the class is the name of the class is very self-explanatory, like Introductory Documentary Filmmaking. You're going to be filming and editing and making a documentary. So if you are into that sort of stuff, then this class would be probably really good. Like, I loved it because I love that sort of stuff. But if you don't, if that doesn't sound fun to you, then this class you're probably not going to like it as much as I did. But yeah, so good. I thought it was great, and I've been recommending it to everyone. In our last class, my professor said she has had, because you have to apply to get into this class as well. You had to apply, so I had to do like an application last semester, which is like a little written application form thing. But my professor said she's had over 40 applications for this class next semester, and it needs to be a small class size for it to really work, because you can't watch like 40 pieces every single week. It just wouldn't work as a large class, so she wants like, you know, maximum of 10 people in the class, probably, ideally even less. And so now she's got so many applications for next semester, so apparently it's popular. I don't know how many applications there were for this semester, but yeah, I don't know. Apparently lots of people want to do it next semester, so I don't know if I've had any role in that, because I have been recommending it to a lot of people, but yeah, it's obviously a little bit in demand. So yeah, it was a very good class, and overall I'm going to rate it a 9 out of 10. A 9 out of 10, which, like, it's very hard to get higher than that, because any higher than that is like really high. Yeah, I just thought it was such a good class. There's not really much I could criticize. Like, I don't have much criticism for it at all. So a 9 out of 10. Definitely by far and away the best class I've taken at Yale. Goodness gracious, I'm running out of, my throat is starting to hurt. I've been speaking for so long because I also filmed like an hour-long video before this. Definitely the best class I've taken at Yale so far, and it's made me definitely want to like double major in film and media, and I would 100% take it again. I would take it again in a heartbeat. Okay, now for the full ranking of all of the courses I have taken at Yale, both last semester and this semester. So if you haven't watched the video of me rating and ranking my classes from last semester, I'd recommend watching that after. It was actually 2 because I spoke for so long. I hope this one's not gonna have to be 2. So yeah, if you want to know more about the classes on this list that I took last semester, then go watch those. But from worst to best, the rankings of the 10 classes I've taken at Yale so far in my freshman year are: The bottom is Math 115. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. You'll know my opinions on that if you watch my video last semester. That was just, yeah, no. Math 115. Second from the bottom, Chem 163. So I took that last semester as well. Third from the bottom is Spanish 110. Fourth from the bottom is Humanities 115. In 5th place is Humanities 116. In 4th place is Economics 115. In 3rd place is Econ 001. In 2nd place is Econ 159. And in 1st place is Film 162. So as you can see, the top 3 positions on the rankings are all taken up by the classes that I took this semester. So yeah, as you can kind of see, the classes I took this semester were a lot better than the ones I took last semester. That is the ranking list, the ultimate ranking. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna film this like same video after each semester at Yale, and I'm gonna like update this ranking list after each semester. So by the end of my time at Yale, I'll have like 40 classes on this massive ranking list, and I have like show you like all of them ranked, all of the classes I took at Yale completely ranked on that list. So I'm interested to see, yeah, I'm interested to see what classes I take next semester and in the future semesters and where they will fit in on the table. But yes, I really need to stop this video because I need to rest my vocal cords. So thank you very much for watching this video. I really hope you've enjoyed it. It's been a very chatty video, but if you have been following my channel this past semester or this past year, I hope this is like a good kind of wrap up of my thoughts of all of my classes, because you would have seen like little bits throughout vlogs, but this is what I really thought of all of them. So thank you so much for watching all the way to this point in the video. I really appreciate you being here. If you have enjoyed it, please give me a thumbs up, and thank you all very much again for being so supportive of my journey at Yale so far. It feels weird calling it a journey, just my time, my first year. You guys have all been really like supportive, and I've been able to, it's been so much fun sharing so many special moments and memories and the highs and the lows, many lows with all of you, and I'm looking forward to sharing more highs, hopefully more highs than lows in the years to come. So yeah, if that sounds good to you and you're not subscribed, please attend to that, fix that problem. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!